It's 40 years since the Maruti 800 was launched, and who would have thought that this humble little car would create an entire automotive industry and put a whole nation on wheels. To celebrate the 40th birthday, we're going to look back at what was a remarkable, almost fairy tale-like story. One could say that it was an unfortunate plane crash that led to the birth of Maruti. It was born out of the late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's desire to make a national car company in memory of her late son Sanjay, who had a dream to make a people's car. But how? Prime Minister Gandhi got the brightest minds from the public sector to build a car company. Mr. V. Krishnamurthy, the chairman, and R.C. Bhargava, who went on to become the managing director for 16 years, started out as novices. All they had was a book on world cars to guide them to find a suitable partner. After many twists and turns, lengthy negotiations with global giants, it was finally the dogged and feisty Osamu Suzuki that signed the deal with the Indian government. Suzuki gambled on making his small cars in an unknown land and with unknown people. And how that gamble has paid off. The backing of an emotional Prime Minister ensured that Maruti got a red carpet instead of red tape. A factory was built, a supply chain and distribution network set up in record time. And on December 14th, 1983, exactly 40 years ago, the first Maruti 800 was delivered to Harpal Singh, an Indian Airlines employee. No, the Maruti 800 didn't go to a celebrity, but it became a celebrity in itself. Indian roads would never be the same again. I mean, it's hard to imagine that this car was the wonder car of the 80s. It was an absolute craze. Everyone from all walks of life aspired to own one. I mean, you look at it in today's context, there's no semblance of safety. It's so basic. It's absolutely small. But quite honestly, compared to what we had at that time, which were Padminis and Ambassadors, those were absolute dinosaurs. This was like something from the future. The Maruti 800 captured the imagination of the country. Everyone wanted one and were willing to pay a premium of twice its 50,000 rupees sticker price. It changed the social fabric of the country, with women taking to the wheel like never before. In fact, for a generation of people, it was their first car. Celebrities bought them too. Cricketing legends like Sachin Tendulkar and the late Polly Umrigar and the late Field Marshal Manekshaw too all had a Maruti 800 at some point of their motoring lives. And just look at this back seat. I mean, I can't believe families went in this all over the country, and so did I. I've taken my wife and kids in this, but I think what the Maruti 800 brought was absolute reliable and efficient transportation. It really emancipated so many people. It let them take to the wheel, go on long distances, what they would never have done before. Truly, this is a car that put the nation on wheels. This was a car you could take anywhere without fear of it breaking down. It ran efficiently and reliably. It was cheap to run and cheap to maintain. Powering the little Maruti 800 was a jewel of an engine. The iconic Maruti 800, named after its engine, 796cc to be exact, a 3-cylinder engine, which is not only an engine that has powered millions and millions of Marutis, but it's also the heart of the company. Now, this engine has been around, or was around, for almost 40 years itself. Let's take a quick drive back in time and experience how history was made. This car is just bringing back so many memories, so many wonderful memories. Of course, at the same time, I'm just staggered as to how cars have changed and improved. I mean, there's no place even for a phone. This one didn't have door pockets, nothing. So I guess I'll just keep it here. The Maruti 800, it fast forwarded us into the future. Now it's hard to imagine that, but just remember that in the 1980s, this was the first car with a monocoque, front wheel drive, first car with disc brakes, first car with a synchromesh first gear. Imagine that. And the list goes on and on. And really this car was an absolute revolution at the time. And 40 years on, it is still so relevant when you drive in traffic. You really understand why this car was the staple choice for everyone. Actually, there was no other choice because this was the only thing you had, but really on congested roads, there's nothing like a small car. In fact, this car single-handedly made India a small car market, which it in a way still is today despite all the SUVs coming. Now something like speed breakers, which modern cars struggle with, the 800, it just coasts over them despite those tiny 12-inch wheels. It's just that short wheelbase which allows it to just hop over everything. Wind-up windows, that's what it was. Everything mechanical. And yet, we were just so thrilled to have a car like this. But there's still so much relevant about this car which I love. This car didn't have power steering, but the steering is just so direct. It's just one of the best steerings we've seen on a small car. There's absolutely no slack and it is so responsive. Of course, the car is very light, short wheelbase, but it really gave you a very engaging feel. And the F8D engine, that to me was one of the best engines we've had. Much better than even the Zen's engine, which I think was overhyped. There were no emission regulations back in the 80s to strangle engines, or safety regs to make cars overweight. So even with a simple carburetor, the 40 horsepower 800, which weighed just 610 kilos, felt perky and responsive, perfect to scoot through traffic. The next Maruti 800, the S308, which came in 1986, truly revolutionized the car market. It reigned supreme as the best-selling car in India for over a quarter of a century. But it's the original Maruti 800, the Suzuki SS80, which started the revolution and left behind an incredible legacy. Happy 40th birthday.